Okay, so we have the recording started, and I think what I'd like to do is just kind of walk through a little history of what this whole process is, what we're trying to do. The the College of Engineering and Computer Science, as well as the faculty at large, I think generally recognize that students gain a lot of professional exposure and a lot of education from industry aligned positions, internships, co-ops, things like that. I don't think any of us think that all engineering education occurs in a classroom, right? And so, in acknowledgement of the fact that our students, even before they graduate, are definitely learning things that are relevant and germane to their professional career, the general idea is, hey, instead of having the employment and the professional development of an internship be in conflict with the academic course progression, degree progression, why don't we find some way to align those two and maybe look at starting to give some credit to students who are proactive and have found internships and co-ops and things like that. Okay. Now, um, that was the first initiative, and that the push for that started about 18 months ago. I pushed a little bit, and then I learned that Dr. Chopra, who was our associate dean, also had a similar sentiment. I did a bunch of data mining, got some information to him, and he really took charge of the whole initiative. And was I think he was probably thinking about it well before I was, and just I started asking questions, and one thing led to another. And Dr. Chopra said, "Yeah, we're already working on that." I said, "Great, let me get involved and let me help." So we did that, and I think, Mavi, there were what, like 11 people from all the different departments, or a bunch of faculty and staff members from all the different departments in CECS that this past summer had a working group formed and talked through a lot of the details as to how we were going to execute this. And so fall of 2024 was the pilot of this, and we only had maybe 100 people, less than 100 people from across the entire College of Engineering and Computer Science express an interest. And some of them were in computer science and were registered for a CS internship, an IT internship, and some were in the hardware disciplines and were registered for a different course, the EGN 4941. And so in this case, this is round two, right? And so I think we learned a lot from it. We had a lot of successes from a procedure standpoint. We had a couple of hiccups and a couple of failures that we lost a couple of details along the way. So we, on the administrative side, are still learning, and bluntly, will continue to learn. This is only the second semester that we've done this. So we want to make sure that we are as inclusive as possible and we benefit as many students as we can. What we do ask is a little bit of good faith from you, from the student side, to know that we're not experts in this. This is literally the second time we've done this, the second semester that we've done this. And insofar as we want everything to go smoothly, there are bound to be hiccups along the way. Okay? There are definitely bound to be hiccups along the way. So I think what I'd like to do, there was a website that was developed, and it was a CECS website. And I think, Madhvi, I think you were one of the people who organized all the content for that, right? So that is, let me do a quick screen share. It's my second monitor in the background as I stare off into the distance at my other monitor. But this is basically the guidelines for this. And this was in the email that I sent out. Okay, the link to this. So if you got the email, which obviously you did because you're here in this Zoom meeting, but if you didn't go to the website, please do go to this. Okay, and so you look at all the content that's here. It really wants you to dig down to the approval and enrollment process. And so generally speaking, the idea is we need you to go into Handshake. That really kind of starts in here. We need you to go to Handshake, log into Handshake, and if you've not used Handshake, I'll show you where that is. I'm not a Handshake user myself, but I certainly can point you in the right direction. It's very intuitive. And so all the detail is here that tells you where to go to submit your experience. And so what we're looking for for you all, we're looking to make sure that you get all the info entered properly, but we also need some documentation of your internship. And so if you have like an offer letter, right? The offer letter is the ideal piece of information that says, hey, Northrop Grumman has offered me this position to commence in January 2025, et cetera, et cetera. And here's my offer letter. So when you submit that, we have the process to basically take that information and route it to the faculty and staff members who will review it and make sure that the position description and the job you're going to be doing really is consistent with your degree program. Now, let me make sure you guys understand where I'm coming from. If Northrop Grumman says they want you to be a design engineer or a manufacturing engineer or quality engineer, clearly that's applicable across the board. But if you have an offer letter from, let's say, a manufacturing company to work in a machine shop as a machinist, right? That's something that we're going to take a really hard look at because it's not really engineering content. Okay. So if there's something that's a little questionable, we may need to dig into that. Now, again, if you come back and you say, I've gotten a job as a, CNC machine operator and I'm doing tool path work and I'm doing all of this CAM work and everything, okay, well, that definitely starts to smell a little bit more like engineering work, and we're going to engage and validate that. All right. So as you go through this, we're looking for you guys to get all of this stuff in the Friday before the start of the semester. And if I'm not mistaken, that's January the 3rd. Okay. So we need to make sure that this is all there. Now, I do see that there's questions, and I recognize that we're going to have a ton of questions. So let me just make sure that you guys understand what we're after. All right. It is graded as a satisfactory, unsatisfactory. So there's a web course associated with your internship. The web course is going to have assignments along the way. You actually have some stuff that you have to submit along the way, like progress type assignments, things like that. And then at the very end of your internship, presumptively the end of the spring semester, there's a final project where you actually have to write about your experiences and what you've accomplished in your internship and tell us, what you've learned and how it's going to help you in your career. Okay, it's not huge. This semester, again, this is the first semester that we've done this. This semester, some students submitted a written document, some did a PowerPoint with a voiceover and did a 10 or 12-minute PowerPoint presentation, recording, and so they submitted an MP4 document that was a, 10 or 12 slide PowerPoint presentation. And really quite descriptive with imagery and descriptions and discussions and things like that. The people who submitted written documents, again, same kind of thing. Ideal would be enough that we understand what the scope of your work was, but this is not intended to be a 50-page report, right? That please don't do that. That's not what we're asking for. So the guidelines and the guidance for all of that will be given in the web course along the way, and so we don't really need to get into that now. But reasonably expect that at the tail end of the semester, you need to spend, half a day writing up your experiences over the course of the semester, something to that effect. Okay. Now, I'm here to speak for mechanical and aerospace engineering. Okay. We had, as a department, expected that we wanted our students to achieve a certain academic standing. In other words, if we have a student who's marginally on the edge of being asked to leave UCF, we do not want that student to be actively working however many hours a week in an internship. We really want them to be focused on their academics so that they don't, get a bunch of work experience and then frankly fail out of school. So we do ask, with the original agreement was that we were asking students to have a 2.8, okay? And as long as students met that requirement, I think we had asked for a 2.8 and to complete the dynamics course. I think that was one of the thresholds that we were after. Again, I think that particular piece, the dynamics, I think everyone on my distribution list will have it just based on how I advertised and did the outreach. Okay. So that's really the guts of it. And again, I do see questions. I'm going to answer the questions that are in the chat, but the guts of it really boil down to make sure that you have an existing internship, right? We're not in the business of going out and helping you find an internship for January. That's important, okay? And then what I would say we need you to do is make sure you have the proper documentation. Now, if you have an internship that you've already been doing, and this is all late breaking news, let's say you got an offer letter that for an internship that started back in August, right? I want to make sure everybody's aware. We can't go back and capture historical internships. So if you did an internship a year ago, we don't have the ability at this time to go back and say, hey, let's give Bob or Sue 1 credit for their internship from a year ago. We're not really set up to do that. This is intended for current internships. Now, again, if you have an internship you started in August, your offer letter from August, right, would be a valid set of documentation for continuing on and registering in January. Please be aware, though, that one of the things we ask for is feedback from the supervisors, right? So as long as you're continuing to work an internship through the spring semester, when we reach out to the supervisor, and ask for feedback, like, is student X, doing all right? If we ask that kind of information and your supervisor says, yes, the intern slash student is doing great, then you're in a good place. For somebody that had an internship that started in August and says their internship is continuing into the spring, but maybe it isn't, right? They give us the offer letter from August. Well, in, the tail end of the spring semester, when we reach out to that manager and ask for feedback and they say, what are you talking about? Bob hasn't been here since December, right? Then you're not going to get credit. You will wind up with an unsatisfactory grade because we have failed to validate the successful completion of your internship. So this does require the active participation of a supervisor or a manager at your internship or place of employment. Okay. So we can capture continuing internships, we can capture new internships. And so I think I've answered a couple of the questions there. I see Joshua asked a question about, if you're working full time, are we capturing that? And the answer is yes. A full-time employment, if somebody is in a pre-engineering slot, if you're in an engineering slot and you're performing as an engineer without degree and you're working full time, but it's not labeled as an internship, I did seek clarification that we are accepting that. Okay. So at that point, your hiring manager, your full-time manager in your job will be the one who will provide the feedback for the evaluation during the spring semester. Okay.
Can
Now,
I just interject a little bit
of
regarding
course.
the process? So, yes, the deadline ideally we want to make sure that you're set up and enrolled in the internship course as soon as possible. So that will mean that you want to provide all the accurate details. So if the offer letter says you're only a summer intern in the past, but you have continued your internship, we want to see the documentation that you're continuing your internship in the spring semester. So what does that mean? It could be an email from your supervisor or HR stating that you're continuing your internship. So that helps us really speed up the process of verifying that you are going to be indeed in an internship during the spring semester. So when you go into Handshake and submit the experience form, once you submit it, you want to go back into the experience form to attach both your offer letter and any additional documentation that will help us verify that you're going to be doing an internship. Now, there are two-step processes in approving the experience form. So one, once you submit the experience form, I will review it, making sure that all the documentation is in there. And then it goes to Kurt to review and approve it. And then finally it goes to your hiring manager or HR who's required to approving that you are going to be in the internship during the dates that you have provided in the experience form. And it's really important that you complete the experience form in detail because, you really don't want, information left out because that's just going to hold up the process for approval. Okay.
So there was a question in the chat about the number of academic credits, and this is a touchy subject. I want to be very open about it. I will say that the entire College of Engineering and Computer Science is not necessarily fully aligned, I'll explain what I mean when I say that. Um, I think all of you know that universities, particularly engineering and computer science departments, go through accreditation reviews. You've seen that ABET uh, phrasing on job postings, I'm sure, degree from an ABET accredited program. So our departments at the university get essentially audited every 6 years, and that audit process is conducted by a group called ABET, ABET. And the accreditation board that does those audits comes in and they're very thorough. It's kind of like having the IRS come visit you and stay for a week. They're very thorough in terms of how they evaluate the quality and integrity of your program. And so, I very much wanted to give whatever credit to students for their work experience that we could, but we wanted to be cautious and we wanted to be incremental in that process. And so for the mechanical and aerospace department, the faculty at large discussed this at the end of last spring. And the general consensus was that MAE wanted to give one credit per semester of internship, repeatable up to 3 times. So the expectation then being that, if you're in an internship and you repeat that internship 2 semesters, well, you can register for one credit and register for a credit. And then, of course, if you do a third semester, you can register for a third credit. In doing it 3 semesters, you would then kind of check the box of one of your upper division approved technical electives. So you would not need to take one of those 3,000 or 4,000 level technical electives. We have many transfer students who missed the EGN or ENG 1006 and 1007 courses in their freshman year, and so they're missing 2 1 credit slots. And so for those poor students who come in as transfers, they're missing 2 1,000 level credits, and typically those students would have to take a 3,000 level technical elective to satisfy 2 1,000 level credits, 2 singular 1,000 level credits. So the idea of this internship for experience, those intro courses are introduction to engineering, right? So I assume that somebody who's a junior or a senior who's doing an internship is getting plenty of introduction into the profession of engineering. And so why would we not want to give them 1 credit and 1 credit as a transfer student, right? And then they've checked the box of those two 1 credit classes that they've missed. So if you are a transfer student, or if you missed a class, or maybe you got some weird transfer out of high school where you got some AP credit and you're missing like 1 credit, this is a great opportunity for you to get that 1 credit. Now, again, so I see somebody asking about, can you repeat it with a full-time job? The initial emphasis of this was co-ops and internships. Obviously, if you have a full-time job, we did clarify that a full-time engineering position does qualify for this, and you would simply repeat, for another semester. So if you're in the spring and you're working a full-time job as an engineer without degree while you're in school, great. You register for spring, you get a credit. You continue your employment into the summer, you register for another credit, you're good to go. And you can repeat it up to 3 times, okay? So the reason why MAE chose that, I just want to make sure everybody's understanding where we're coming from. There was at least one other state university in the state of Florida that has been doing this in the mechanical and aerospace disciplines for 1 credit. So there's historical precedent across the state that this has been around for 15 or 20 years at one of the other state institutions. And so for that, the you know, we believed from an accreditation standpoint that doing something that had already been looked at 2 or 3 or 4 times at another state institution, we were not going to get our accreditation process in jeopardy. Um, 1 or 2 of the other departments in our College of Engineering and Computer Science jumped straight to more than 1 credit. And they can do that, right? I'm not going to say which department or whatever, but a department that gives more than 1 credit is charting new territory. Let's say it that way. They're charting new territory. They're doing something that really hasn't been looked at um, from an accreditation standpoint, and it from the MAE faculty, it felt a little risky. Okay, from an accreditation standpoint, and because our next accreditation review is in 2 years, we deemed it was safe and prudent to stick with a single credit per semester. Okay. All right. So hang on a second. Let me go back and make sure I capture this. So in this case, what we're after is industry-based professional experience, co-op, internship, or a full-time engineer without degree. So a pre-graduation engineering role. This does not include undergraduate research. So if you're doing undergraduate research, this would not be the proper registration. You would want to register for undergraduate research credit or possibly independent study credit. And those two, unfortunately, I'm not well versed on. And so I don't really want to speak to whether or not that's regularly done. That's kind of outside my area of expertise. If you have an internship that's long-standing, like maybe it's not just, hey, I started working there in August. Maybe I started working there in 2021 and I'm continuing on in my same internship, right? What we would want that particular person to do is just get an email or get a confirmation from your employer or your supervisor or from HR to say, hey, employee, X will be continuing on through, at least through the spring of 2025. And then when you go to the internship for credit website, which again was in the email that I sent out, and it's something we showed earlier, that particular information is what you'll upload to document the fact that your internship is continuing. Okay. All right. Let's see. So there's a question about the position description. Okay. And let me go back and make sure. Typically, an offer letter will have enough information about the position, okay, to for us to verify what the role is. Trying to think how much detail we need. If somebody says, "Hey, we're asking you to come on as a manufacturing engineer at Northrop Grumman," or if we're asking you to, come on as a design engineer over here at Aerojet, or whatever the case may be, typically, that kind of offer letter for your internship is adequate. So I think a position description, if you're asking about entering it in Handshake, you want to give a little more information about what the actual job entails. Okay, that way we have a little bit more substance, excuse me, because when that gets routed around internally at UCF for approvals, we kind of want to see what's under the hood, right? There's a position that's doing X. Give us a few sentences and let us know what you anticipate the work actually involving. Okay. Um, let's see. This is a registered credit. Okay. So it is a single credit. It is 1 credit of EGN4941. So if you register for this, there is a cost associated with it. It is the cost of a single credit. Okay. So from the standpoint of tuition or Bright Futures or financial aid or whatever the case may be, if you had planned on signing up for 12 credits in the spring and you sign up for this singular credit of 4941, you would then be registered for 13 credits with what other ramifications or impact that would have. Okay. One thing that I have not spoken to, but I need to speak to, I don't know if we have anybody on the current session who is affiliated or is interested with Lockheed. There is a blip that we have to address, and this is something that we've been working on it since the summer. I do not believe it is currently resolved, and it pertains to the difference between a Lockheed Martin intern at Lockheed and a Lockheed Martin CWEP. And so between those two, when the college work experience CWEP program was created with Lockheed Martin, there were some agreements that were put in place. And buried in that contractual language for CWEP is something, and I don't personally know exactly what it is because I'm not a lawyer, and frankly, I didn't ask the lawyers to delineate exactly what the issue was. For this particular situation, CWEP does not qualify. Okay. And I know for a fact that in the fall we had at least one or two people that were upset about that. And I get it, right? Um, our college leadership is working on addressing that. It will probably require the lawyers to actually change the entire CWEP agreement with Lockheed Martin so that CWEP does qualify. I don't know how much work is involved. It'll be, however many tens of hours of lawyer time at, however many thousands and thousands of dollars. Whatever it is, UCF is going to do it. It is being pursued, but it has not yet been resolved at this time. So if you are a CWEP, please be aware that that one slot, that one particular descriptor, at this time, as of December 12th, does not qualify. Now, a Lockheed Martin intern directly at Lockheed does. Okay. All right. So hopefully I've answered all of the questions that were asked along the way. Hopefully. Um, I do have requests. All right. So for all of you who are on our session today, what I am very specifically asking is get this done quickly. All right. You heard from Madhvi earlier that there were at least 3 different sets of approvals that have to happen at UCF. If you wait until January 3rd to process this documentation, all of it is going to be bound up in the queue with people trying to do approvals. Okay. So, what I would say is the more people we can get done earlier, the better. All right. So if you're on today's call, if you're on today's session, and it sounds like we've gotten all of your stuff addressed, for goodness sake, sometime in the next couple of days, please just go ahead and get this done and get your stuff submitted. Okay. The reason why I say that is remember that, UCF's going to shut down and resume back on like January 2nd, right? So that's only going to give a couple of days to really to see your internal stuff approved. The actual registration for the course, I believe, is handled. I know Madhvi is still in the call, but I know she's out. Oh, there she is.
Yeah, yeah.
The actual registration, the actual digital, the actual active registering, that's handled administratively, correct?
So I actually register the students once I see that the experience form has been approved.
Okay, so when the
Mhm.
approval cycle is done, Ryan, so in response to your question about being able to register, when the approval cycle is complete, then Madhvi will administratively register you for the course and it will appear, and you should be able to confirm that in My UCF.
Correct. Yeah. And you will receive an email from me.
Okay.
And Kurt is also copied in on those emails that you've been enrolled. So just look out for those emails. And again, if you see that your experience form is in progress, you may want to just alert your supervisor or whoever you've written down to approving your experience form, so that just alert them that this is an email that will come through Handshake. Um, Sometimes those Handshake emails go through junk or spam folders. So just alert them that, an email should come through via Handshake to review and approve the experience form. So if you have a change of approver or supervisor, do let me know so I can go on the back end of Handshake to updating all that information.
And then the email that is generated, help me with the process. So the student is going to enter their stuff into the system, and then Madhvi, you are going to review the initial application to confirm that all of the information is present. And then the information for the supervisor is in that initial information provided by the student. And
Right.
when you've blessed it that everything is complete from the application side, at that point, an email is going to go to the manager. Is that correct?
So the process is the student completes the experience form. I see it on my end.
Okay,
And then they will add you, Kurt, as
sure.
a success coach, under the academic success coach. So just be aware of that needs to take place. And then once I see that everything is complete, it will go to you
Okay,
to review and approve, to making sure that the student has met the minimum requirements and that they have the right type of internship that qualifies
right.
for the course. And then it goes to the supervisor.
Okay,
So
so it's after I do the engineering assessment and say, hey, this engineering description of what the actual job is meets our accreditation standards. It's after my approval that the email will go to the supervisor.
yeah, and there's a
Okay.
question in the chat. Yes, you will get notified if Kurt were to decline the experience form for any reason, right? So we do inform you if there is additional information that we need, or whatever the case is. So it could be through Handshake that you're getting this message, or you'll get an email from myself or Kurt um to verify the information, or to let you know that you didn't qualify for the internship course.
So I want to make sure, again, I want to say this and make sure that everybody who is currently here with us, and of course, since we're recording this is going to get shared with all of those people on that 900 person distribution list, right? So they won't see the chat, but they'll hear our responses to the chat. They'll actually get the video recording, not the actual chat content. But to that point, I want to make sure everybody understands, you know, both of us have full-time roles doing other things. Okay. So if we have 200 people who all submit applications on January 2nd, it's going to get ugly. It's going to get really, really ugly. Okay. So I need everyone to be extremely proactive. Okay. I need everyone to be extremely proactive in terms of doing this. I personally, as a faculty member, the university is going to shut down on the 19th or 20th or whatever it is. I'll take Christmas Day off, but I'll be checking my email every day. And so if somebody has submitted stuff and if it's coming through the approval loop to me, it will get addressed over the winter break. Okay. It might not get addressed on December 25th, but on December 26th, it's going to get addressed. So the goal here is to make sure that you don't drag your heels, because again, we sent this information out to almost 1,000 people. I have no idea how many of them have internships. I'm going to guess 20 or 25%. Okay. That means there's a lot of people who qualify for this who are not in this Zoom session today, and they're missing out. Okay. So there was a question in the chat. I'm going to verbally restate it for the purposes of the recording. In the handshake form, it asks about salary, and the answer to that is you can put down hourly rate, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. There's another question in the Zoom chat about will everyone get accepted or is it limited spots? In the fall, we did limit it. 3 months ago, we limited it specifically because we didn't know what we were getting into. We didn't know how much time was going to be required to review people's stuff. Okay. We now know the answer to that question, more or less. And so we anticipate we're, at least for MAE, for our department, we're going to blow the cap right off. So out of nearly 1,000 people who were solicited to come to today's Zoom session, if 200 people register for this, we're committed. We're going to take 200 people. Okay. And everybody's going to get the same treatment. Everybody's going to get the same review. Um, but please recognize that the people who are processing your documents and reviewing this stuff are doing so on a volunteer basis. Okay. So, I spent a very modest amount of time doing the reviews this fall. Madhvi did a lot more in the background with the web course. But if we have 200 or 250 people this spring, that would be wonderful from a university, engagement standpoint. It'd be great to be able to provide that benefit to a couple hundred students. It's going to be a lot of time, and it's all volunteer time. So in exchange for that, again, I restate, please be proactive about getting your paperwork in, and don't make us like rush at the last minute because we may run out of time. Okay. I know for myself when January rolls around, I mean, I know that most of the folks in the session won't know who I am, but I have our capstone program. So I have all the seniors. So I'm running senior design right now. And so come January, if everybody waits until the last minute and I have 200 files in Handshake for my approval, right? I'm also trying to launch all the senior design teams and work with 35 other faculty members to get senior design running for spring. And so, having 200 reviews to do at the last minute isn't going to happen. Okay. So, got to be proactive. Okay. What other questions can I answer? Looking at the Zoom chat. I think we've answered everything. What's the earliest we can do this for summer 2025? So, Anthony, in response to your question in the chat, what I would say is let's get registered for the spring, right? First of all, and then, or if you do have an internship for the spring, let's get registered for the spring. If you don't currently have one for the spring, but you have a summer internship and you're in this to get ready for summer, I'm gonna guess just like, March or something like that, let's go ahead and do it. Or if you already have all of your offer information in hand for this summer, and this is, brand new for the summer, let us get through the crunch of people for January. So Anthony, if you're not doing an internship for the spring, but you are doing it for the summer, maybe submit your stuff, to Madhvi, into Handshake end of January, something like that. Let us get through the spring enrollment before we inject summer enrollment into the mix. I'm trying to read into your question to know whether you're saying for a second semester or summer being the first time you're doing it.
And Kurt, you already discussed about multiple times they
I
can
did.
students can.
Yep,
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
repeatable up to 3 times. Yes.
perfect. Yeah.
Yep. Already talked about that. And by the way, the 3 times can be 3 times with the same employer, or it could be with different companies, right? So we are not weighing in on the specifics. If you go work with a company and they love you and they want to have you back and you're continuing to do fine with that company and you stay with them for 3 semesters, great. That's 1 credit, 1 credit, 1 credit. Or if you're just spreading your wings and trying different, market sectors, different kinds of engineering work, and it's a semester with this company, a semester with this company, and a semester with this company, that's fine too. Okay. From a purely academic standpoint, and maybe speaking more broadly to the people who are not in this session, but may view the recording, um, you know, ultimately, I want this information to be briefed to the freshmen and the sophomores. Okay. I know that we reached out predominantly to people who were juniors or potentially credit-wise were seniors. The goal here is to make sure that this information is in everybody's hands more or less as soon as it's relevant to them coming to the university. Okay. I would say our fall 2024 pilot, a small pilot, was worthwhile for us to understand and try to work out the kinks. I will say this spring is phase two of that, where we're lifting the caps and just kind of seeing what comes at us. And then I would say, as we move into the summer and fall of next year, the next piece of this really is going to be to roll it out to the underclass people. It is not closed in any way. Okay. Please be aware, if you know someone who is a sophomore who is doing an internship, for goodness sake, share this information with them. Okay. I in no way feel that my advertisement that I put out was perfectly targeted. Okay. I asked for enrollment and contact information for people who fell into what I thought was an okay, like what is the target audience initially, and I had to merge 63 different Excel files to get a distribution list. Okay. I guarantee you I missed something. I guarantee you. So please, broadly advertise this information. Talk about it with your friends. Talk about it with your classmates. Please help us help our students and spread the word. Okay, we need your help to do that, because that final phase of this, the marketing and advertising and outreach and communication piece of it, I think we still need to work on a little bit. I know that students get, 30 emails from UCF a week, and the general tendency is, oh, look, more spam, delete, delete, delete. Well, this is one that I wish a lot of students would not delete. Okay. So what we will probably do, um, is figure out, off in the future, a year from now, what is our best communication path. I will say at this point, even my outreach effort just a week ago was very ad hoc still. Okay. And we're aware of that. We're trying to fix it. Okay. All right. So we're 47 minutes into this. I hope everybody has not fallen asleep. Any other questions that we can answer? Madhvi, any final thoughts from you? Any details that we may have missed?
I think if you are okay, I'll be happy to share my screen to showing students where to go if they want to kind of learn that.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I did bring up the CECS internship for credit page earlier. And
Yeah.
that, by the way, that link was in the email as well. But beyond that,
Yeah, I wanted to show how they can go into Handshake and so on. Yeah.
that
Okay.
is the part where you're the expert. I'm not so much a handshake user just because I haven't needed to be.
Yeah. So I guess I'm able to share, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. So all students have access to Handshake. So just so you know, all you need to do is sign into Handshake using your NID and password. And then once you're in there, this is the profile section that you'll see. Where you want to go is Career Center. And once you're in Career Center, it will give you, and my internet has been very dodgy. So once you're in the Career Center, you'll click on Experiences, and this is where you will submit an experience. So once you click on Submit an Experience, it will ask you all different questions. And so you want to make sure that you're selecting, especially the right term, right? This is really important that you're selecting spring 2025, because we won't give you credit for, previous internships. You could report your previous internships if you like through completing the experience forms. That's perfectly fine, but credit will only be given to spring 2025 internships. Also, this is really important. Organization. Type it out, make sure it's accurate. Make sure that the organization listed on your offer letter is the same as the one you've added to the experience form. Location, again, where you're going to be is important, or sometimes it's pre-populating some of the company locations that are already in Handshake. So all this information, so phone number and email you can give to of your supervisor or the HR manager. Then the experience section, this is really key, writing, what your position title is, so on, and start and end date. So you might have started maybe last year. You want to add that, and then maybe you're graduating after spring. So you can add when you're completing the internship portion of the experience. And then experience type, this would be, again, some of you might have jobs that you're trying to count as an internship. You can just put what is so. And then over here, when you accepted the position, so on. And then this is really key where it says academic success coach. This is where you want to put Kurt's email address. It will pre-populate because he's already in the system. And then your internship hiring manager recruiter. So this can be confusing, right? So either if you've been in an internship for some time now, your hiring manager or your supervisor can be the person approving the experience form. Sometimes some companies prefer that the recruiter or HR approves it. So you want to find out who to put in that section so that it's easy for approval. And then your internship supervisor will be the person who will be providing an evaluation at the end of the internship. So we will be reaching out to the internship supervisor to completing an employer evaluation. So this is, again, really important that all this information is accurately added into the system. And then over here, you want to read the statements really clearly. Even though it says if you do 135 hours or more, you can ask for more credit. Unfortunately, it's not the case for MAE. It's only for one credit. So just review all the details. And then over here, you will click on the major related restricted electives. So we know that you're doing it for MAE credit. And then you want to include what your major is, if there's a minor or certificate, your graduation date. This is really important for us too. And then Kurt talked about ensuring that you have detailed position description. Very key, because again, this will give us an idea how related your internship is to MAE. And then indicating whether it's in person, hybrid, virtual, so on, how many hours you're working, pay rate, hourly rate or monthly rate is fine. Again, this is for data purposes. So as much as accurate data we obtain, it's always good for us to see that. And then this is also important. How did you get your internship? Through networking, through Handshake. Again, really important information for us. Your academic success coach, again, you can put Kurt on that. And then it does ask if you have met your success coach. You can, determine whether you have or not. You don't need to for this purpose unless you're trying to figure out, whether how this counts towards a technical elective and planning your courses and so on. So number of credits requested, it will always be one for MAE. So just make sure to put one. So the rest I will be filling out as I enroll you. So that's all you need to do. So once you submit the experience form, this is really key. You will go back to Career Center, and there is a submit button at the end, but you will go back to the Career Center, go to experiences, and then when you click on an experience that you submitted, that's where you can attach the offer letter and additional documentation. So it's important, again, for you to go back to the experience form to attach everything on there. Okay. Any questions? I wasn't sure if there were any questions in the chat.
I think there was only one question about somebody who is going to be working with the company after graduation. I assume that their internship ends the day of graduation, and then
Right.
they are presumptively no longer a student anymore. So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and this is kind of unspoken, but I just want to make sure everybody is aware of it. And again, recording for posterity, we are granting credits or a credit for a successfully completed internship, right? And so again, right, and this is rare, but there have been interns who have been terminated during the semester for whatever reason. And so one of the reasons why we need that supervisor email is we do request feedback from them, and we want to make sure that the efforts that were put in by our student in that, work study environment, in that internship environment, were consistent with professional work, right? I mean, if you have a scenario where somebody doesn't doesn't show up for work, their supervisor is going to tell us that, and that person is not going to get credit. So I hate to have spent 45 seconds talking about that, but I guess I have to.
And the same goes to the web course assignments, right? You want to make
Yeah.
sure that you're completing them on time, that you're reviewing all the modules, keeping up with, submitting your reflections and whatever the assignment requires. And, the first couple assignments are not difficult, but they're really important because it will require you to really think about how you want to be successful in your internship, right? Creating the learning objectives, really understanding what you want to get out of the internship. So that will be really key. And then making sure that, you're not just running behind schedule in completing the assignments that will be coming up towards the end of the semester, because it does get busy. You want to plan it out as much as possible.
And I would say that again, this fall being the first semester we've done it, looking at what the final documentation submissions were, whether they were a written document or a PowerPoint with a voiceover, I'm going to say that, I mean, there was time invested in that documentation. And by the way, we need that time invested. There is a scenario where if you just submit like a document with one paragraph that said, "Hey, I worked for XYZ company and it was fun," right? That's not going to be an acceptable final report of your work for the semester, and technically you're not going to get credit. And I don't say that to be mean or threatening or whatever. Remember why we're doing this, right? All of that stuff that lives in the web course is how we're going to share with an accreditor, with one of our auditors, that the work that you did was professional engineering work. And so if you're not doing the assignments in the web course, you may have learned great things in your internship. We can't prove to the world that our students were doing real world engineering. And so please, as Madhvi had said, that web course is extremely important in terms of getting yourself organized and your thought process organized at the start of your internship. And at the very end, that reflection, looking back and talking about what you learned and how it pertains to your career, it will help you like kind of close out your thoughts for the semester. But it also provides us um, here's the report, right? This is what the student did, and this is why we gave them one credit of a 4,000 level engineering course, right? So think about it this way. It's that last report is an assignment for a 4,000 level engineering course, right? And if it gets turned in and it's inadequate or inappropriate or it's just not turned in, then you won't get credit for the course. Okay.
And another way to looking at this is you're building your portfolio, right? You're
Yeah.
showcasing how you're articulating your experience, what you learned. And this is really key when doing interviews for employers for full-time positions because they want to know what you've learned. And this tool and the report that you've created should be able to showcasing that learning that you've had throughout the semester and articulating to the employer what you've learned, what the skills were, what concepts did you apply from your academics into the internship and vice versa. And again, this is to build your portfolio that you can also showcase to an employer.
That is a great, great summary. I would say the quality that I would want to see, you know, at that final document, that final briefing that you're doing or the final report you're doing, write it like you were going to carry it into an interview, right? And hand it to a potential hiring manager. Okay, make it professional. That would be the guidance that I would give. And in doing so, you serve 2 points. Number one, we have excellent documentation of the work that you did to earn that credit. And number two, as Madhvi has said, you're well organized, thoughtful, and structured that maybe a week later you're interviewing for a job, right? And all of that thought process you went into thinking about all the things that you learned along the way, it's first and foremost in your mind during that interview, and you can speak to how the interview helped you become a better engineer or how it helped you down your journey, your professional journey. Okay. Okay. We're an hour in. I think I had put out the invite for an hour. We're down to the last half a dozen or so people still with us. So I think they hopefully hung in there and benefited. Um, I will take the recording. I'll have to render it on YouTube, but I will take the recording and then I will go back to the original distribution lists that I used for the 988 people. That actually was two separate emails. I learned Outlook, it limits you to 500. I never knew that before. But I will send it out to that BCC distribution list, and hopefully we will see some additional number of people beyond the 12 or 14 or whatever who were here with us at one point or another. And the other, so my final two thoughts. Number one, if you're going to act on this, act promptly, do it in the next few days so that we can process your paperwork in a timely fashion. Item two, broadcast this. Talk to your friends, talk to your classmates, help us make sure that everybody knows about it. Okay? And barring that, if there are no final questions, I'll give you a 5 count. Okay, we'll declare the session over. Thank you.
Right. Happy holidays.
And Mobby, thank you for sacrificing your lunch for us today.
No worries.
I know you're in an all-day event, and so thank you
Yes.
for sacrificing your lunch. I
Yep,
appreciate it.
no worries. Okay, thank you.
See
Okay,
y'all.
bye-bye.
Bye.